Like many things in life, weapons often obtain a status that is far from their actual capabilities. These weapons, while in most cases are not bad, people tend to glorify them by overestimating their actual capabilities, often due to marketing or mostly because of movies and entertainment media. I have 5 examples of this today. The MG42 machine gun was fantastic. It was the one that perfected the excellent design of the MG34, making it simpler and cheaper to produce. This machine gun is legendary. We've all seen movies where often just one of these was able to stop the advance of entire platoons. However, this weapon is definitely overrated, and our view of it is biased by the stories of the fighters who faced these, to stories that seem to be a bit exaggerated. And these accounts are the basis for a majority of movies and video games that we have seen or played. This, as everyone will know, had the highest rate of all single-barrel machine guns in World War II. Some versions reached 1,800 shots per minute. With such a rate, you're probably wondering how the barrel of the MG42 could withstand such punishment. Such punishment because it really didn't. The high rate of the MG42 made sustained fire impossible as the barrels wore out very quickly, even though the barrels were replaced quickly. By the team operating the machine gun, this left a window of several seconds where enemy soldiers could flank the machine gun or simply charge on it. To postpone the barrel change, German soldiers fired the machine gun in short bursts, which was obviously disadvantageous. This was also done in order to save ammunition, as the MG42 consumed much more ammunition than its Allied counterparts in the same period of time. What characterized the MG42 machine gun was its biggest problem, the rate of fire. Biggest problem, the rate of fire. Perhaps it would have been better to calibrate the machine gun to fire 1,000 shots per minute. Versions of machine guns that wanted to copy the paradigm of German infantry machine guns, such as the MG60 or the FN-MAG or later, have rates of around 600 shots per minute, leaving as evidence how counterproductive it was to have infantry machine guns with such a high rate of fire. Don't get me wrong, the AK-47 is a really capable, cheap, easy to produce, and very effective weapon, and for this reason, it earned its place in the world. This was a weapon that was produced in large quantities and therefore was inserted into the popular culture of many countries, and it is probably the most recognizable assault rifle in history. Movies and works of fiction often greatly exaggerate the capabilities of this weapon, giving them unreal abilities in the process. An example is its reliability. It's very good, but people tend to believe that the reliability of the AK-47 is perfect. If you look closely under the barrel of the AK-47, you'll see a rod. This is a cleaning rod. The AK-47 can jam with mud, sand, or any kind of dirt, and its mechanisms can also rust like with most rifles of its type. Like all weapons, it requires constant maintenance to be able to fire effectively. The truly wonderful thing about the AK-47 is that despite being in deplorable conditions, it can fire, although obviously for practical purposes, a weapon like this really can't be used. Another thing I can highlight about the AK-47 is that the AKM and its derivatives have always been partially inferior in capabilities to their American counterparts, although they have always been considerably cheaper to produce. And there lay their main advantage, in addition to effectively having greater reliability. Desert Eagles are very beautiful pistols. We've seen them in countless movies and video games as a precise, reliable, and of course very lethal weapon. And it is. But this really is a weapon for recreational use. Despite its fame, this weapon is not used by almost any type of police or military force in the world. It is only used by a Polish paratrooper brigade and a special forces group in Portugal. The Desert Eagle is a weapon that cannot be used tactically because its caliber is too high. It weighs almost 2 kilograms, so it's too heavy to be used with agility. It has a capacity for 7 cartridges when it's calibrated for the 50 AE, and its recoil is too high. Firing this weapon rapidly is extremely challenging. All of this makes the Eagle not even considered for use by any police or military force. The market for the Desert Eagle is the civilian market. It is normally used for target shooting and hunting, although, as in movies, it is used by criminals for its imposing caliber. In a confrontation between 5 trained police officers with Glock 17 and 5 criminals with Desert Eagles, the police would definitely win due to all the previously mentioned disadvantages. So really, Desert Eagles are weapons to have on a shelf, rather than to be used against other people. The 1016 and derivatives have always had a lot of controversy behind them. Movies and video games paint the 1016 as really reliable and accurate weapons, but these rifles definitely left a lot to be desired. For example, it is well known by most people that the first versions, like the base version 1016 from the Vietnam War, had many problems with dirt and were really susceptible to failing during combat. However, these problems were quickly solved in the 1016 A1 version. But something that not all people know are the problems they have with overheating. The 1016 and the 1016 and its direct derivatives use a direct gas push system to operate the weapon. This means that while it uses gas to drive the mechanisms after each shot, it does not use a piston like most rifles of this type do. This makes it a bit cheaper and simpler to clean, but it causes the gases to enter the mechanism box after each shot and degrade the weapon's components faster, making the weapon much less effective and of course less resistant to sustained fire. We have solved this problem in derivative rifles like the HK 416 made by Henkler Koch simply by adding a piston to the gas system. And don't get me wrong, the 1016 was a really good weapon that put the United States Army on the path of modern rifles, but the 1016 were definitely rifles with many perfectly solvable shortcomings. The ICUs were fantastic weapons. The Intensive Care Unit was the first tactical submachine gun. We've seen it in many movies and video games as a truly lethal, precise, and reliable weapon. And lethal it is, but many people are unaware that this weapon has many operational cadences. For example, it's a weapon that operates with a simple recoil system. The problem with this is that being a submachine gun with few grip points and high cadence makes the submachine gun somewhat imprecise. In addition, this submachine gun operates with an open bolt, and since the bolt stays back when cocked, the mechanism box is more susceptible to the ingress of sand and dirt. So in adverse environments, you have to be constantly cleaning loosey, which is curious since it is a weapon made for the desert. However, there is a reason for this, and it is to allow air to enter the chamber and cool the weapon more quickly, making it a bit more resistant to sustained fire. Its standard size versions are relatively comfortable and controllable if held properly, with the stock extended and with both hands. Something we see in movies and is illogical is that characters fire Uzis with one hand and do it accurately. An Uzi is completely uncontrollable with one hand due to its high rate of fire and simple recoil action.